Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Ministry Paper No. 120. The report of the Constitutional Reform Committee on the Transition to the Republic of Jamaica and Other Matters, May 21, 2024, page 1 of 12. Ministry Paper 120. The report of the Constitutional Reform Committee on the Transition to the Republic of Jamaica and Other Matters. 1. Introduction 1.1. Honorable House of Representatives is being asked to note that Cabinet in accordance with Decision No. 1624 dated 20 May 2024 approved. 1.1.1. The tabling of the report of the Constitutional Reform Committee on the Transition to the Republic of Jamaica and Other Matters dated May 3, 2024 as a ministry paper. 2. Background 2.1. Members should note that the reform of the Constitution has been an ongoing process. The establishment of a Joint Select Committee on Constitutional and Electoral Reform, JCCR in 1991, marked a major milestone. The JSCCR was appointed to review the Constitution of Jamaica, the Constitution, and make recommendations for its reform. In presenting its recommendations, the JSCCR determined that a new constitution should be framed. As a result, the Parliament established a Constitutional Reform Commission, the Commission, in 1991. In 1992, the Commission commenced its work to receive and examine proposals from the public on the form and content of the Constitution and matters for reform. The Commission presented its recommendations in a draft report in 1993 and its final report in 1994. The JSCCR was then reconvened to consider the totality of the Commission's recommendations, and it presented its own report which was accepted by the Parliament in 1995. 2.2%. Over a decade later, in May 2007, a Green Paper on constitutional reform issues was tabled in Parliament. It proposed that there should be brought to Parliament a legislative instrument establishing a new constitution which will reflect the consensus that exists. The Green Paper did not depart from the page 2 of 12 recommendations made by the JSCCR and reaffirmed that there was wide area of agreement on particular matters requiring reform. 2.3. More recently, members will recall that in March 2023, a Constitutional Reform Committee (CRC) was established to provide expert guidance to the government and the people of Jamaica during a phased constitutional reform process. The primary focus of the CRC is to consider and make recommendations for the implementation of the recommendations of the JCCR of 1995, starting with those matters on which consensus remains, while helping to build consensus where it has eroded or is non-existent on other significant matters. 2.4%. The CRC has been charged with the task of assessing how the passage of time has impacted the recommendations of the JSCCR and advise what fresh perspectives ought be considered in light of any new national, regional, or international development between then and now, as well as recommend any necessary modification to update the recommendations for implementation. 2.5. The CRC has also been requested to help guide the constitutional reform process through all of its phases, with the charge to produce a modern and new constitution, which reflects an appreciation and understanding of Jamaica's cultural heritage, governance challenges and development aspirations, and which embodies the will of the people of Jamaica. 3. Amendment Procedure 3.1. Members are advised that the recommendations for implementation in Phase 1 involves the alteration process for the deeply entrenched provisions of the Constitution set out at Section 49.3. This process to amend these provisions require the holding of a referendum for the first time in independent Jamaica. The success of the referendum will hinge on consensus between government and the opposition. Page 3 of 12, 3.2. The provisions that are regarded as deeply entrenched enjoying the highest level of protection include I. Section 49. Alteration of the Constitution. 2. Section 2. Effect of the Constitution. Section 34. Establishment of the Parliament of Jamaica consisting of Her Majesty, which includes her successors, a Senate and a House of Representatives. 4. Section 35. Composition of the Senate from the government and the opposition. For Section 36. Disqualification from an election to the House of Representatives. VEFs. Section 39. Qualification for membership in the Senate and House of Representatives. subject to disqualification and including Commonwealth citizenship, age, and ordinary residence. 7th. Section 63(2), Sessions of Parliament. 7th. Section 64(2), 3 and 5, Life, Extension and Dissolution of Parliament respectively. IX. Section 65, Appointment of Senators after General Elections. X. Section 68(1), Vesting of the Executive Authority of Jamaica in the Monarch. She. The Jamaica Independence Act, 1962. 3.3. Members are asked to note that in order to amend these deeply entrenched provisions, a bill for an Act of Parliament must be tabled in the House of Representatives, the House. A period of 3 months must elapse between the introduction of the bill in the House and the commencement of the first debate on the whole text of that bill in that House. A further period of 3 months must elapse between the conclusion of that debate and the passing of that bill by that House. The bill must be passed in each House by the votes of not less than 2/3, 2/3 of all members of that House. Thereafter, the bill must be submitted to the electors qualified to vote for the election of members of the House of. Page 4 of 12. Representatives, not less than 2, nor more than 666 months after its passage through both houses and approved by the majority of the electors voting. 4. Summary of recommendations of the report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. 4.1 Members are asked to further note that although the recommendations are set out under various headings in different parts of the report, they seek to achieve two broad goals and other related matters as follows. 4.1.1. Jamaicanization of the Constitution, resulting in a reformed Constitution, through the enactment of the Constitution of Jamaica, with amendments, as an act of the Parliament of Jamaica and approved by the people of Jamaica, in Jamaica reflecting, among other things, an appreciation and understanding of Jamaica's cultural heritage, and 4.1.2. Abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of the Republic of Jamaica, that is to say, the replacement of the King of England with a non-executive president. 4.2. The process to Jamaicanize the Constitution includes 4.2.1. The revocation of the Jamaica Constitution Order in Council, 1962, described in the report as the imperial instrument, while expressly saving the Constitution set out in the second schedule of the said Order in Council. 4.2.2. The insertion of a preamble which is, in poetic and resonant tones which echo our heritage and proclaim the aspirations of the nation. The CRC was unable to arrive at a consensus on which preamble to select from those proposed. Therefore, it is recommended that the matter be determined by an expert committee comprising the Poet Laureate of Jamaica, a senior lecturer in the Language, Linguistics and Philosophy Department of the page 5 of 12. University of the West Indies, a Jamaican novelist and a Jamaican musician. 4.2.3. The insertion of the following iconic representations of Jamaica's identity, history, people, aspirations, and values as creative expressions of Jamaica in a schedule to the reformed Constitution. A. The national emblems. A. National flag. B. National anthem. C. The coat of arms. B. The national symbols. A. National tree. B. National flower. C. National fruit. D. National bird. C. The national motto. D. The national pledge. E. The national song. F. The national prayer. 4.2.4. The replacement of the UK Interpretation Act, 1889 with the Jamaica Interpretation Act, 1968 for the purpose of interpreting the reformed Constitution. The provisions of the Jamaica Interpretation Act, 1968, which are to apply to the interpretation of the reformed Constitution, are to be given the same level of protection as is given to the constitutional provision to which they apply. 4.2 and Hive. New words of enactment. The words of enactment prescribed under Section 61 of the Constitution reflects the role of the monarch in the enactment of legislation by the Parliament. It is proposed that Section 61 be amended to vest the supreme authority to enact legislation solely in the page 6 of 12. Parliament. Where a bill is one which requires the approval of the people in a referendum, the words of enactment are to refer to the Parliament and people. In ordinary legislation, the words of enactment are to refer to the Parliament of Jamaica. Cabinet by Decision No. 424, dated February 5, 2024. Approved the tabling of a bill to give effect to this recommendation prior to the tabling of the bill for the establishment of the Republic of Jamaica. The tabling of the bill ahead of the bill to establish the Republic of Jamaica is intended to allow the bill to be drafted using the proposed new words of enactment to reflect that it is enacted by the Parliament and people of Jamaica. 4.3. Replacement of the monarchy with a republic. It is no longer considered appropriate for Jamaica's form of government to be a constitutional monarchy, and the head of state should not be a hereditary monarch but instead be one chosen by a process in a representative democracy which affirms Jamaica's sovereignty. This transition will be achieved by I. Removal of the British monarch as the head of state. 2. Removal of the British monarch from the legislative and executive authority of the state. And 2. Establishment of a new head of state for the Republic of Jamaica in the office of the President, with the President as the head of state performing ceremonial functions and exercising certain executive powers, which do not involve the administration of government. 4.3.1. Method of appointing the President. The selection of the President is to be done through a two-stage process of nomination and confirmation. Nomination by the Prime Minister after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition with a view to arriving at consensus. And 1. The people in this context means the electorate. Page 7 of 12. 2. Confirmation by the Parliament, in a joint sitting of both Houses, on a vote of 2/3, 2/3 majority of each House voting separately by secret ballot. 2. In the absence of consensus between the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, each is empowered to make a separate nomination to be confirmed by both Houses of the Parliament sitting jointly, on a vote of an absolute majority of each House voting separately by secret ballot. 4.3.2. Required qualifications. The holder of the office of the President must I. Be a Jamaican citizen by birth or descent. 2. Be ordinarily resident in Jamaica and be permanently in Jamaica for at least 10 of the last 15 years preceding nomination. 2. Not be under a duty of allegiance to a foreign state or foreign power by his or her own act and not another person's. And IV. Not be disqualified for election to the Parliament. 4.3.3. Functions and powers. The powers now exercised by the Governor-General by virtue of the constitutional relationship with the monarch. Statutory provisions and by general custom are to be exercised by the President of the Republic of Jamaica under the reformed Constitution. 4.3.4. Tenure of office 7 years, renewable for a second term of up to 5 years. 4.3.5%. Immunity from suit or prosecution in respect of I. The performance of the functions of the office of President, or any act done by the President in respect of the functions of the office, and 2. Any act not involving treason, fraud and/or violence committed during the term of office. Page 8 of 12. 4.36. Resignation. By instrument in writing addressed to the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate. Copied to the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. 4.3.7. Temporary vacancy arising from unscheduled absence or temporary absence due to illness or other cause. To be filled by the appointment of an acting president by the Prime Minister after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition from among the custodes. 4.3.8. Termination of appointment, where it is found that the President I. is unable to perform the functions of the office whether arising from infirmity of mind or body or any other cause. 2. Behaves in a manner that endangers the security of the state. 2. Misbehaves in a manner that brings the office into disrepute, or IV. Pledges allegiance to a foreign state or foreign power. The process is to be commenced by a motion tabled in Parliament at a joint sitting of both Houses, carried by a vote of 2/3, 2/3 majority, with each House voting separately by secret ballot, followed by the establishment of an ad hoc parliamentary committee to investigate and report on the facts, and to recommend whether further steps should be taken to effect a removal from office. 4.3.9. Transitional arrangements from Governor-General to the office of the President of the Republic of Jamaica. I. The holder of the office of Governor-General at the time when the reformed Constitution comes into effect is to assume the office of President of the Republic of Jamaica on a transitional basis until the selection process for the President is expeditiously completed. 2. In the event that the holder of the office of Governor-General is either unable or unwilling to assume the role and functions of the Page 9 of 12. President during the transitional period, a transitional president be appointed by the Prime Minister after consultation with the leader of the opposition. From among the custodes or from among the President's Council, the former Jamaican Privy Council. 4.4 System of Government. Retention of the Parliamentary Cabinet System. 4.5 Citizenship criterion for membership in Parliament. Eligibility for membership. To the Parliament is to be Jamaican citizenship and exclude Commonwealth citizenship. References to Commonwealth citizens are to be removed from the reformed Constitution and be provided for in ordinary legislation. 4.6 Disqualification from Parliament. To be expanded to include conviction for offense of treason and conviction for any offense involving fraud or violence where the person has been sentenced to a term of imprisonment for a period of 18 months or more. 4.7 Impeachment process. Not to be included in the reformed Constitution for reasons set out at paragraph 6.3.2 of the report. 4.8 Fixed general election dates. Not to be included in the reformed Constitution. 4.9 Extension of the life of Parliament. To be expanded beyond when Jamaica is at war to include disasters created by or as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence, infectious diseases or other calamity, whether similar to the foregoing or not. Such an extension should be limited to periods not exceeding 6 months at a time for a maximum of 2 years. 4.10 Composition of the Senate. Increased from its present membership of 21 to 27, appointed by the President as follows. Page 10 of 12. 15 members on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. Secu. 9 members on the recommendation of the Leader of the Opposition. And 3 members outstanding persons in the private sector, civil society, faith-based or community-based organizations, or other sectors of society as in the President's discretion from among President considers necessary. 4.11 Modification of the citizenship provisions. That, in addition to the recommendation at paragraph 4.2.14. Privileges may be conferred or special provisions made for citizens of the Caribbean community by way of ordinary legislation. 4.12 The Electoral Commission of Jamaica is to be incorporated in the reformed Constitution and be granted the same level of entrenchment as the superior courts in respect of its electoral functions, while excluding the functions of the Ombudsman. 4.13 The office of the Public Defender is to be incorporated in the Constitution with the basic functions and appointment process as stated in the current Act and be afforded the same level of entrenchment as proposed for the Electoral Commission. 4.14 Final Appellate Court. No consensus was reached on the issue of the final appellate court. As such, there is no recommendation for an amendment to the Constitution in that regard. However, consensus could be built through a meeting between the leaders, failing which, the issue could be placed on the referendum ballot. 4.15 Jamaica Independence Act 1962 amend relevant provisions to be consistent with the reformed Constitution. Page 11 of 12. 4.16 Enactment of a referendum law to prescribe the procedure of obtaining the approval of the electorate in a referendum. 5. Members are advised that the report of the Constitutional Reform Committee on the transition to the Republic of Jamaica and other matters is attached hereto. Marlene Malahuforde, KC, JP, MP, Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. May 21, 2024, page 12 of 12, Appendix Y report of the Constitutional Reform Committee on the transition to the Republic of Jamaica and other matters, May 2024, Phase 1, blank page. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024, Table of Contents, Parts page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Introduction, Establishment, Terms of Reference, Acknowledgements, Operations, Subcommittees, Public Engagement and Communication, Jamaicanization of the Constitution, Repeal of the Imperial Instrument, Insertion of a Preamble, Insertion of National Emblems and Symbols, Reform of Presentation of the Constitution, Inclusion of Jamaica Interpretation Act. 1968 6 Words of Enactment, Replacement of the Monarchy, with a Republic, Removal of the British monarch as head of state and as part of the Parliament. 1. Creation of the Office of President. 2. Method of appointment of the President. 3. Required qualifications. 4. Functions and powers 5, tenure of office 6, immunity 7, resignation 8, temporary vacancy 9-10, termination of appointment, transition to the office of the President of the Republic of Jamaica 11. Retention of the parliamentary cabinet system, comparison of the parliamentary cabinet system and the presidential system 1. Reform of the parliament, the citizenship qualification 1. 141334454 trend 10 1610 1 and 11 12 13 wars 14 14 14 15 15 16 17 30 17 18 19 20 20 21 21 22 22 23 23 24 24 25 25 29 29 30 30 33 30 33 33, 38, 33, 35. I. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024, Parts 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I 2 3 4 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3, 1, 1 2 3, 1, 1 2 3 4 5. Disqualification, impeachment process, fixed general election, dates, extension of life of Parliament, in cases of public disasters, composition of the Senate, increase of membership, vacancy in the Senate, retention of the constitutional safeguard, parliamentary nomenclature, citizenship modification of the citizenship provisions, incorporation of Electoral Commission, reason for inclusion of the Electoral Commission, new developments on the ECJ, appropriate level of entrenchment, incorporation of the Office of the Public Defender, background to the treatment of the Office of the Public Defender, the issue of the final appellate court. The amendment process, Jamaica's sovereignty and legislative competence, the title of the reformed constitution, preparation and issuance of drafting instructions, enactment of a referendum law, public education, and engagement, signature page, annexures, terms of reference for the Constitutional Reform Committee, list of people and organizations that made submissions, proposed preambles, national symbols and emblems. Page 35, 36, 36, 37, 37, 38, 38, 39, 39, 41, 39, 40. 40, 41, 41, 42, 42 menace, 43, 42 menace, 43, 43, 44, 43, 43, 44, 44, 44, 45. 44, 45, 45, 46, 46, 50, 46, 48, 48, minus 49, 49, 49, 50, 51. I at 6. Body 2. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 1. Introduction. 1.1 Establishment. 1.1.1 On March 1, 2023. A Constitutional Reform Committee, the CRC, was established to provide expert guidance to the government and the people of Jamaica during a phased constitutional reform process. This process is aimed, among other things, at implementing the recommendations of the 1995 Joint Select Committee on Constitutional and Electoral Reform, JCCR, on which consensus remains, while helping to build consensus where it has eroded or is non-existent on other relevant matters. 1.1.2's CRC is composed of 15 members with varied training, experiences, and associations as follows. I. Honorable Marlene Malahou Forte, KC, JP, MP, Chairman, Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, SECU. Ambassador Rocky Mead, CD, JP, PhD. Co-Chairman, Office of the Prime Minister for SEC. Dr. Derek McCoy, CD, KC, Attorney General of Jamaica 4. Senator the Honorable Thomas Tavares Finson, OJ, CD, KC, President of the Senate and Commissioner of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. V. Senator Ransford Braham, CD, KC, Government Senate. ZIS. Senator Donna Scott Motley, Parliamentary Opposition, Senate. 1. Since the establishment of the CRC, Ambassador Mead has been appointed as Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. Page 1 of 52nd, Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 7th. Mr. Anthony Opposition, House of Representatives. 7th. Mr. Hugh Small, KC, Consultant Counsel and nominee of the Leader of the Parliamentary Opposition. 9. Dr. the Honorable Lloyd Barnett, OJ, National. Hilton CD MP Parliamentary. Constitutional Law Expert, ex-Professor Richard Albert, International Constitutional Law Expert, University of Texas at Austin, Tennessee. Dr. David Henry, Wider Society, Faith-Based, Sure. Dr. Nadine Spence, Civil Society, Social and Political Commentator, Commentays. Mrs. Loletta Davis Mattis, CD, JP, National Council on Reparations, IV. Mr. Sujay Boswell, Advisor on Youth Strategic Engagement, XV. Dr. Elaine McCarthy, Chairperson, Jamaica Umbrella. Groups of Churches 3. 1.13 The CRC has been supported by the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs and a secretariat comprising public officers of special expertise and experience as follows. Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. I, Mr. Wayne O. Robertson, JP Permanent Secretary 2. Ms. Nadine Wilkins, Director, Legal Reform Department the 3rd. Ms. Judith Grant, Chief Parliamentary Counsel, Office of the Parliamentary Council. 2. Professor Richard Albert is a Canadian of Jamaican and wider Caribbean ancestry. 3. Dr. Elaine McCarthy was named to the CRC after it was established and attended her first meeting on the April 5, 2023. Page 2 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. V. Mrs. Janelle Miller-Williams, Senior Director, Legal Education v. Ms. Nastasia McFarland, Director, Corporate Communication and Public Relations the 6th. Mr. Christopher Harper, Senior Constitutional Reform Officer and Liaison Officer to CRC the 7th. Ms. Julia Wedderburn, Senior Legal Education Officer of the 7th. Mr. McKean Brown, Legal Officer INX. Mr. Ivan Godfrey, Legal Education Officer X. Ms. Yannick Douglas, Legal Education Officer She. Ms. Crystal Paris-Campbell, Assistant Parliamentary Counsel Chief. Mr. Winston Lowe, Public Relations Officer. Ms. Shadan Facey, Strategic Planner, XV.MS. Georgette Campbell, Administrative Assistant Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. XV. Ambassador Sheila Sealy Monteith, CD, JP Permanent Secretary. 1.2 Terms of Reference, TOR 4. 1.2.1 The CRC has been charged, as stated in its TOR, with the task of assessing how the passage of time has impacted the recommendations of the JSSR and advise what fresh perspectives should be considered in light of any new national, regional and international development between then and now, as well as recommend any necessary modification to update the recommendations for implementation. 4. The terms of reference of the Constitutional Reform Committee has been set out at Annex Wars, page 3 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 1.2.2 The CRC has also been requested to help guide the constitutional reform process through all of its phases, with the charge to produce a modern and new constitution, which reflects an appreciation and understanding of Jamaica's cultural heritage, governance challenges and development aspirations, and which embodies the will of the people of Jamaica. 1.2.3 The CRC has taken note that the Green Paper on Constitutional Reform Issues 5 that was tabled in Parliament in May 2007, stating that there should be brought to Parliament a legislative instrument establishing a new constitution which will reflect the consensus that exists, did not depart from the recommendations made by the JSCCR in 1995. It further noted that although some amendments have been made to the Constitution over the course of the last 3 decades, certain issues on which recommendations for reform were made have been left unresolved. 1.3 Acknowledgements. 1.3.1 The CRC thanks the members of the Secretariat, the stenographers and all staff members who have supported its work. We also extend our gratitude to the Embassy of Jamaica in Washington, D.C. and the Jamaica High Commission in London for organizing and hosting engagements with the diaspora, and everyone who has made written or oral submissions to the CRC and otherwise engaged with us via social and other media as well as through 5 Green Paper 1 2007, May 29, 2007. Page 4 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 2. Operations. 2.1 Subcommittees. 2.1.1 In keeping with the TOR, the CRC has so far established four subcommittees to advance its work. 2.1.2 The Public Committee is mandated to facilitate, receive, and examine questions, proposals and ideas from the Jamaican public on the matters for consideration in the constitutional reform process, and to mobilize public interest in the work of the Engagement and Communication Sub, CRC. This subcommittee is chaired by Dr. Nadine Spence, Civil Society Representative. 2.1.3 The Youth Strategic Engagement Subcommittee is mandated to facilitate active and inclusive participation of young people in the constitutional reform process, and to ensure that their perspectives, needs and aspirations are considered in the formulation of the recommendations of the CRC. This subcommittee is chaired by Mr. Sujay Boswell, Advisor on Youth Strategic Engagement. 2.1.4 The State Affairs Subcommittee is mandated to review the existing powers exercised by the monarch and his personal representative, the Governor-General, under the Jamaica Constitution, Order in Council, and the Constitution of Jamaica, the Constitution, and under any other. Page 5 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Relevant law or convention, and to determine the appropriate powers that should be vested in the proposed office of the President of the Republic of Jamaica. This subcommittee is chaired by Senator Ransford Braham, Government Senate. 2.1.5 The De-drafting Strategy Subcommittee is mandated to guide and inform the preparation and review of the report of the CRC and the draft bills. This subcommittee is co-chaired by the Honorable Marlene Malahoo Forte, Chairman of the CRC, and Dr. the Honorable Lloyd Barnett, National Constitutional Law Expert. 2.2 Public Engagement and Communication. 2.2.1 The CRC first met on March 22, 2023 and has subsequently held 38 CRC meetings, 5 town hall meetings and over 80 other stakeholder engagement sessions facilitated both face-to-face and online. 2.2.2 Town hall meetings were held in each county, within the parishes of St. James, St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, County of Cornwall, Manchester, County of Middlesex, and Portland, County of Surrey. 2.2.3 Alongside the town hall meetings, stakeholder sensitization sessions were conducted in the parishes of St. James, Manchester, Portland, and Westmoreland, with participants. Page 6 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024, from various sectors of the society including but not limited to I2.2.4 Private sector, chambers of commerce, ministers, fraternal service clubs, community groups, custodes, rotulorum, and justices of the peace. 2.2.4 The Legal Education Division of the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs has engaged over 2,000 civil servants across 38 ministries, departments, and agencies on constitutional reform. Over a period of 11 months through 42 sensitization sessions. 2.2.5 Additionally, the Legal Education Division sensitized 5th and 6th form students at the Cedar Grove Academy, Waterford High, Jose Marti High, and Cumberland High. The focus of the engagement was on Jamaica's transition from a constitutional monarchy to a republic. A total of 118 teachers were engaged students and 88 teachers were engaged. An official Road to Republic School tour is scheduled to commence in September 2024. 2.2.6 Following different rounds of interface with the public, the CRC, through the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, issued two separate sets of publications in the Jamaica Gleaner and the Jamaica Observer on June 4, 2023 and September 21, 2023. The first was a call for submissions to enable the CRC to consider any constitutional reform-related matter of particular importance. Page 7 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. To any member of the public or any group. The second was a list of all the issues raised in the submissions and other commentaries, which were considered by the CRC, and which also included a further invitation for additional submissions on any other issue not previously raised. 2.2.7 In its effort to achieve meaningful public engagement, information, education, and communication. Material 6 on constitutional reform. The phases of the constitutional reform process and the transition from a monarchy to a republic were created and widely disseminated. 2.2.8 Members of the CRC participated in a number of Jamaican and overseas radio and television programs that were aired on stations including RJR, Irie, Mellow, Cool, Love 101, FIA, Edge, Power 106, Fame, Gospel JA Nationwide News Network, Rebel Radio Jamaica 1, USA, TVJ, and CVM. The CRC also supported the production of a 30-second public service announcement and a jingle. 2.2.9 The CRC also partnered with the Jamaica Association for Debate for Empowerment (JADE) to host a series of competitions, to include debates between the University of the West Indies, MONA, and the University of Technology, Jamaica, and among high, preparatory, and primary schools. 2.210 The chairman of the CRC, with the assistance of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, also engaged with 6. IEC materials. Page 8 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Members of the diaspora in the United Kingdom and the United States of America. 2.211 The CRC collaborated with several groups to facilitate workshops, plenaries, debates, consultations, and presentations on matters related to constitutional reform and governance. 2.22 The CRC received submissions from 28 individuals and organizations 7, and heard presentations from 8 as follows. I. Mr. Carville Stewart. 2nd. The Jamaica Language Unit, University of the West. 28. In person. Indies 2. Aver v. Thif 7th. Jamaica Left Alliance for National Democracy and Socialism. Jamaica Lands the National Democratic Movement. NDM. The Advocates Network We the People. Republic Ja Citizens Action for Free and Fair Elections. CAFE and the 8th. The Jamaican Bar Association, Jambar. 2.213 The CRC. www.roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jm. Social media pages on Facebook, Road to Republic JA. Instagram, Road to Republic JA. X, formerly Twitter, Road to Republic. A dedicated WhatsApp number. Also established a dedicated website. 7. A list of the individuals and organizations who made submissions to the CRC can be found at Annex 2. Page 9 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024 876-4419097. Constitutional Reform at mlca.gov.jm. To facilitate the receipt of submissions from and responses to the public on matters. And an email address. Related to constitutional reform. 2.214 For ease of public access to date. The written submissions of the 8 in-person presentations made to the CRC and the confirmed minutes of its meetings have been published on the Road to Republic website. 3. Jamaicanization of the Constitution 8. 3.1 Repeal of the Imperial Instrument. 3.1.1 The CRC is firmly of the view that after six decades of sovereignty, it is no longer acceptable that Jamaica's constitution, although drafted in Jamaica and debated in the Parliament of Jamaica, should be contained in a schedule to a British imperial instrument, the Jamaica Constitution, Order and Council. 1962, made at the court at Buckingham Palace in England on the 23rd day of July 1962. By virtue of subsection 1 of section 5 of the West Indies Act 1962. 3.1.2 The CRC reaffirms the statement in the Green Paper set out earlier at paragraph 1.2.3 that a new legislative instrument should be brought to the Parliament. 8. In the context of this constitutional reform work, the phrase Jamaicanization of the Constitution, coined by Dr. Lloyd Barnett, has been adopted and adapted by the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs as well as the CRC to refer to the process to have the Constitution of Jamaica passed by the Parliament of Jamaica and approved by the people of Jamaica, in Jamaica. The people of Jamaica refer to those who are qualified to vote in general parliamentary elections, the electorate. 9. On a point of historical accuracy, it should be noted that the Independence Constitution was primarily formulated and drafted in Jamaica with the assistance of the Colonial Office. See Hansard, Proceedings of the House of Representatives 1961 to 2 vols 3 and 4. Proceedings of the Legislative Council 1961 to 2 vol 3. Report of the Committees of the Legislature to prepare proposals for a constitution to take effect on independence, dated 11th of January 1962 in Barnett, LG, 1977. The Constitutional Law of Jamaica, Oxford University Press, Factors in Constitution Making pp. 24-25. Page 10 of 52, Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 3.1.3 Accordingly, consistent with the goals being pursued in Phase 1 as set out in the tour. The CRC recommends that the constitutional reform program should begin with the Jamaicanization of Jamaica's constitution by repealing and replacing the present imperial instrument with a Jamaican instrument made by the Parliament and approved by the people of Jamaica in Jamaica. 3.1.4 The CRC further recommends that simultaneously with this historic change, the monarchical form of our government should be abolished. The King of England removed as our head of state and the Republic of Jamaica established. 3.1.5 Consistent with Constitution. The CRC is firmly of the view that the reformed Constitution must be deeply grounded in the cultural fabric of the nation, ensuring that it resonates with and is accessible to all citizens. It is essential that the Constitution embodies the unique identity, values, and aspirations of Jamaica, thus reflecting a truly homegrown document. Central to this endeavor is the understanding that a constitution should be a reflection of the collective will and vision of the people it. The imperative to Jamaicanize our serves. 3.2 Insertion of a preamble. 3.2.1 A preamble is generally recognized as a useful introduction to a constitution. Many constitutions have preambles which, 10. For all intents and purposes the name of the state will remain as Jamaica, and will mean, among other things, the Republic of Jamaica. Page 11 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Inspire national pride and unity, and contain expressions of lofty aspirations, as well as assertions of moral codes and declarations of political objectives. 3.2.2 The present Constitution does not have a preamble, as the order in council to which it is appended begins with a technical recital of the monarchical authority. 3.2.3 The 1991 Constitutional Commission called for a suitable preamble to be included in the reformed Constitution, in poetic and resonant tones which echo our heritage and proclaim the aspirations of the national leaven. 3.2.455 Proposed preambles were appended to the 1995 JSCCR report, but no selection was made. The CRC has received an additional 3.2.5 The CRC has considered all of the proposals, but has not been able to arrive at a consensus that any of them should be adopted. As a method of resolving this issue, the CRC recommends that a committee of experts, comprising a poet laureate, a senior lecturer in the language, linguistics and philosophy department of the University of the West Indies, a Jamaican novelist and a Jamaican musician, be established and authorized to examine and adapt, where necessary, the preambles, to recommend the selection of the version to be adopted in the reformed Constitution. The proposed preambles considered by the CRC are all attached to this report as Annex the 3rd. 11. See paragraph 9.1 of the Report of the Constitutional Commission Jamaica, August 1993. Page 12 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 3.3 Insertion of national emblems and symbols. 3.3.1 In furtherance of the Constitution and to ground our reforms in the cultural fabric of the nation, the CRC recommends that the reformed Constitution includes, in a schedule, the following iconic representations of Jamaica's identity, history, people, aspirations, and values. As creative expressions of Jamaica to imbue unity and patriotism among Jamaicans as well as respect from non-Jamaicans, as set out at Annex to 4. Imperative to Jamaicanize our. These include A. The national emblems. I. National flag, image of the national flag. 2. National anthem, lyrics and music. The coat of arms, image of the coat of arms. B. The national symbols. I2. 4C. The national motto, quoted in full. D. The national pledge, quoted in full. E. The national song, lyrics and music. And F. The national prayer, updated and quoted in full. 12. National tree, scientific and common name. National flower, scientific and common name. National fruit, scientific and common name. And national bird, scientific and common name. 3.3.2 The CRC has also taken note of the expressions of concern as to the suitability of the present coat of arms as representative of Jamaica's cultural identity. The CRC, therefore, 12 This prayer is intended for use on special occasions. The update replaces references to our Queen and our Governor General with our President. Ministers of State with Ministers of Government and includes the Leader of the Opposition and our judges covering all three organs of the state. Page 13 of 52nd. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Recommends that the coat of arms should be examined to assess the appropriateness of its present form. 3.3.3 The CRC further recommends that, at the level of the Constitution, the intellectual property in the national emblems be vested in the state in perpetuity, and that Parliament be empowered to pass laws to regulate their use and guard against their misuse. 3.4% Reform of Presentation of the Constitution. 3.4.1 It is a well-established drafting practice to place a general interpretation section at the beginning of a statute because it controls the meaning of the text that follows. The technical legal form in which the present Constitution is expressed places the general interpretation section at the beginning. The CRC acknowledges that this presentation is unfriendly to the ordinary citizen and makes it difficult for them to understand. 3.4.2 The CRC therefore recommends that the interpretation section, now Section 1, be moved to the concluding section of the Constitution. 3.4.3 Additionally, the CRC recommends that provisions of the Constitution as the highest law should be referred to as articles instead of sections. 3.5% Inclusion of the Jamaica Interpretation Act, 1968. 3.5.1 In the current Constitution, the reference to a general interpretation provision is to the UK Interpretation Act, 1889. This will no longer be appropriate in the reformed. Page 14 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee, May 2024. Constitution. Accordingly, the CRC recommends that the UK Interpretation Act should not be retained, but that the relevant and appropriate provisions of the Jamaica Interpretation Act, 1968 be adopted. 3.5.2 Accordingly, provisions of the Interpretation Act that are to apply to the interpretation of the reformed Constitution should be given the same level of protection as is given to the provision of the Constitution to which they apply. The CRC further recommends that the 3.6 Words of Enactment. 3.6.1 The words of enactment for bills indicate the source of authority for the making of the enactment, and whilst they are technical in nature, the enacting words are important to signify the supreme authority of the Parliament of Jamaica in legislative matters. 3.62 Section 61 of the Constitution prescribes the words of enactment that must accompany every bill tabled in Parliament. In the case of most bills, the prescribed words of enactment are, "Be it enacted by the Queen's most excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate and House of Representatives of Jamaica, and by the authority of the same as follows." 3.6.3 The need to reformulate the existing enacting words was considered by the Constitutional Commission of Jamaica in its 1993 report in the context of Jamaica's transition. From a page 15 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Constitutional Monarchy to a Republic. The phrase, "The People and Parliament of Jamaica 13, was proposed as a replacement for the existing words of enactment. 3.6.4 The CRC considered that merely stating "the people, Parliament of Jamaica" without more would not allow for accuracy in the words of enactment. Accordingly, the CRC recommends that where a bill is one which requires the approval of the people in a referendum, the words of enactment should refer to the Parliament and People 14. In other cases, the words of enactment would refer to the Parliament of Jamaica. 3.6.5 The CRC further recommends the passing of an act prior to the tabling of the bill for the establishment of the Republic of Jamaica to give effect to the recommended new words of enactment. 3.6.6 In making this recommendation, the CRC is aware that the bill for the reformed Constitution will still have to be presented to the Governor-General for assent. This is because the legislative role of the monarch to provide assent for a bill to become law remains unchanged until the reformed Constitution is approved in the referendum. 13. Report of the Constitutional Commission, 1993, para. 19.14. The people in this context means the electorate. Page 16 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 4. Replacement of the monarchy with a republic. 4.1 Removal of the British monarch as head of state, and as part of the Parliament. 4.1.1 It is no longer considered appropriate for Jamaica's form of government to be a constitutional monarchy. where our sovereign is the King of England. 4.1.2 The CRC formed the view that the ideal form of government is one in which there is a mixture of the elements of separation of powers, responsible government, accountability, and respect for the rule of law. 4.1.3 Consequently, Jamaica's head of state should not be a hereditary monarch, but instead one chosen by a process, in a representative democracy, which affirms Jamaica's sovereignty. 4.1.4 Accordingly, the CRC recommends as a major alteration to the Constitution of Jamaica: I. That the British monarch be removed as the head of state. 2. That the British monarch be removed from the legislative and executive authority of the state, and that a new head of state for the Republic of Jamaica be established. 4.1.5 The CRC further recommends the removal of the British monarch as part of the Parliament. Page 17 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 4.2 Creation of the Office of President. 4.2.1 During discussions within the CRC, as well as in other fora in the public domain, considerable attention was given, in various debates, to the type of president that would be best suited for Jamaica's transition to a republican form of government. Several persons advocated for the adoption of a president, who is directly chosen by the people in a national election. 4.2.2 The CRC carefully considered and weighed the arguments presented in the call for what would essentially be the adoption of the executive presidential system, while maintaining stability in Jamaica's democracy and ensuring that the holder of the office of the president reflects certain ideals. In the end, the CRC concluded that it would not benefit Jamaica at this time to adopt the executive presidential system. The factors taken into account to arrive at this conclusion are summarized at Section 5 of this report. 4.2.3 The CRC also considered the non-executive head of state, one with which Jamaicans are already familiar. It is above partisan politics, and its adoption would enable the officeholder to embody the values stated at paragraph 4.3.1. 4.2.4 Accordingly, the CRC recommends the establishment of the office of President as the formal head of state of the Republic of Jamaica, where the holder performs ceremonial functions and in whom is also vested certain executive powers which do not involve the administration of government. Page 18 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 4.3 Method of appointment of the President. 4.3.1 From the public consultations carried out, the CRC is of the understanding that the people's aspirations for the office of the President of the Republic of Jamaica are that it should be the embodiment of national identity, national unity, and a neutral arbiter for the nation. 4.3.2 Guided by these values and ideals, and after considering provisions of the constitutions of other Commonwealth countries, the CRC recommends that the selection of the prospective president be done through a two-stage process of nomination and confirmation. Nomination is to be done by the Prime Minister after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition with a view to arriving at consensus. Confirmation is to be done by the Parliament, in a joint sitting of both houses, where each house votes separately by secret ballot. The vote required to confirm the nominee is an affirmative vote of 2/3, 2/3 majority of each house. 4.3.3 The CRC further recommends, as an exception, that where there is no consensus between the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, each should be empowered to make a separate nomination for confirmation by the Parliament, in a joint sitting of both houses where each house votes separately by secret ballot. However, instead of an affirmative vote of 2/3, 2/3, the successful nominee would, in this case, be confirmed on the vote of the absolute majority of each house. Page 19 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 4.3.4.4 This exception, which allows for separate nominations and confirmation without a supermajority vote, takes into account political realities in our democratic system of governance. While it makes an important concession, it also provides a solution, through the application of the majority rule, to a problem where gridlock exists. 4.4 Required qualifications. 4.4.1 The CRC, having considered the qualifications, which should be prescribed for the holder of the office of the President, recommends that the President must: I. Be a Jamaican citizen by birth or descent. Secu. Be ordinarily resident in Jamaica and be permanently in Jamaica for at least 10 of the last 15 years preceding nomination. 2. not be under a duty of allegiance to a foreign state or foreign power by his or her own act and not another person's, and IV. Not be disqualified for election to the Parliament. 4.4.2 in including the criterion of citizenship by descent as a qualification for selection as President of the Republic of Jamaica. The CRC noted that Section 3 of the Constitution currently provides that a person may obtain Jamaican citizenship by descent, with no limit as to the degree of descent. Given the status of the President as head of state, which is the highest office in the nation, and given that the span of a generation is approximately 20 to 30 years, the CRC considered it of vital importance that a. Page 20 of 52, Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee, May 2024, nominee to this office establish a stricter connection to Jamaica. 4.4.3 Consequently, the CRC recommends that the criterion of citizenship by descent should be limited to three generations. In this case, the nominee would be considered the third generation, the parent of the nominee the second generation, and the grandparent of the nominee the first generation. Therefore, the nominee's entitlement to citizenship by descent would be derived from no further than the grandparent. 4.5 Functions and powers. 4.5.1 Nature of current powers of the head of state. 4.5.1.1 The CRC noted that the Governor-General performs, on behalf of the monarch, ceremonial duties and exercises a range of executive functions specifically set out in the Constitution and other laws. 4.5.1.2 The general rule under the present Constitution is that, in the exercise of the executive authority of Jamaica, the Governor-General acts in accordance with the advice of the Cabinet or a responsible minister acting under the general authority of the Cabinet in relation to his powers and duties under the Constitution or any other law. 15. 4.5.13 The Governor-General empowered to act by the Constitution or under any is also constitutionally other law. 16. 15. See Section 32, 1 and 6 of the Constitution. 16 Law is defined at Section 1 of the Constitution as any instrument having the force of law and any unwritten rule of law. Page 21 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee, May 2024. I, in his own discretion. 2. On the recommendation of any person or authority other than the Cabinet and in accordance with such recommendation. 2. On the advice of any person or authority other than the Cabinet. 4. With the concurrence of any person or authority other than the Cabinet, or v. After consultation with any person or authority other than the Cabinet. 4.5.2 Taking into account the report of the State Affairs Sub-Committee, the CRC recommends that the powers now exercised by the Governor-General by virtue of the constitutional relationship with the monarch, statutory provisions and general customs should be exercised by the President of the Republic of Jamaica under the reformed Constitution. 4.5.3 The CRC also recommends that Constitution, the Jamaican Privy Council be renamed the President's Council, while retaining the same functions, in the reformed, and powers. 4.6 Tenure of office. 4.6.1 The CRC recommends that the term of the office of the President of the Republic of Jamaica be 7 years, renewable for a second term of up to 5 years. The periods are recommended to reduce the probability of the term of the President coinciding with the term of the full life of. Page 22 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee, May 2024. Parliament, and to allow for some continuity in the office of the President, in the event of a change in political administration. 4.6.2. The CRC also recommends that the appointment for a second term should be confirmed by the Parliament using the same process for the original appointment as set out above at paragraph 4.3.2. 4.63 The CRC further recommends that the process to select a new president should commence at least one year prior to the end of the prescribed tenure of the incumbent to complete the process of selection in sufficient time to ensure a smooth transition and formal handover of office. 4.7% Immunity. 4.7.1% In considering whether and to what extent protection from suit and prosecution should be granted to the President within the Jamaican context, the CRC examined a number of provisions in other constitutions and concluded that such protection was necessary in specified circumstances to preserve the high standing of the office. 4.7.2 Consequently, the CRC recommends that the President should be granted immunity from suit and prosecution in respect of The performance of the functions of the office or any act done by the President in respect of the functions of the office. And page 23 of 52, Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 2. Any act not involving treason, fraud and/or violence committed during the term of office. 4.7.3 The CRC also recommends that during a president's term of office, no process, summons or warrant should be issued or executed against the president. And any period of limitation prescribed by law should not include the period served as president in calculating or determining the time within which proceedings may be brought against the officeholder. 4.8 Resignation. 4.8.1 Section 137 of the Constitution makes provision for the resignation of any person who is appointed, elected or selected to any office established by the Constitution, including the office of the Prime Minister or other minister or parliamentary secretary, and specifies the process by which such resignation would take effect. Since the section does not specify the Governor General, the CRC recommends that the provision be modified in the reformed Constitution to specifically provide for the resignation of the President of the Republic of Jamaica and the process by and period in which such resignation would take effect. 4.8.2 The CRC further recommends that the instrument of resignation of the President must be addressed to the Speaker of the House of Representatives and President of the Senate with copies sent to the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition. Page 24 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 4.9% temporary vacancy. 4.9.1 The CRC recommends that the Constitution should make provision for the appointment of an acting President from among the custodes by the Prime Minister after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition in circumstances where the President is incapable of performing the functions of office by reason of absence from Jamaica, illness, or any other cause. The CRC is of the opinion that this approach allows for expediency and efficiency in making an appointment in such circumstances. 4.10 Termination of appointment. 4.10.1 While it is necessary to provide the office of the President with security of tenure so that it is not subject to the whims of parliamentarians, it is equally necessary to provide a means of removing an incompetent, corrupt, or misbehaving President. 4.10.2 The CRC recommends that the President should be removed from office where it is found that the President is unable to perform the functions of the office whether arising from infirmity of mind or body or any other cause, behaves in a manner that endangers the security of the state. 2. Misbehaves in a manner that brings the office into disrepute, or IV. Pledges allegiance to a foreign state or foreign power. Page 25 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 4.10.3 The CRC further recommends that 4.10.3.1 The process to remove the President from office be as follows. Commenced by a motion setting out the full particulars on which the removal is to be grounded, which is tabled in the Parliament by the Leader of Government Business at a joint sitting of both Houses, and carried by a vote of 2/3, 2/3. Majority of the Parliament at a joint sitting of both Houses with each House voting separately by secret ballot. 2. Followed by the establishment of an ad hoc parliamentary committee drawn from members of both Houses comprising from the House of Representatives 4 from the government side and 3 from the opposition, and from the Senate 2 appointed by the Prime Minister. 1. Appointed by the Leader of the Opposition and 1 of the independent members appointed by the President. The committee is to be chaired by the Leader of Government Business in the House of Representatives. This committee is expected to investigate the complaint and report on the facts to the Parliament within. Page 26 of 52nd. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 6 months after hearing witnesses and/or reviewing evidence. The tabling of the report of the ad hoc parliamentary committee to the Parliament at a joint sitting of both Houses and debate to follow. IV. Where it is reported that the ground for removal has been established, the President shall be removed on the passing of a resolution carried by a vote of 2/3, 2/3, majority of the Parliament, at a joint sitting of both Houses with each House voting separately, by secret ballot. 4.10.3.2 On the approval by the Parliament of the motion, referred to above at paragraph 4.10.3.1, The President shall cease to exercise the functions of office and an interim President appointed, in the manner set out below at paragraph 410.3.5, until the matter is finally determined. 410.3.3 The ad hoc parliamentary committee referred to at paragraph 410.3.1 to secu shall be empowered to I. Investigate and inquire into the allegations. Call for evidence and hear witnesses. And page 27 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee, May 2024. 2. Make a recommendation to Parliament as to whether the President should remain in or be removed from the office based on the nature of the allegations and the findings of the committee. 410.3.4. The time within which the report of the ad hoc parliamentary committee referred to above at paragraph 410.3.12 is tabled may be extended for a further period not exceeding 6 months on the passing of a motion carried by a vote of the absolute majority of the Parliament at a joint sitting of both houses, with each house voting separately by secret ballot. The motion to extend the time shall be accompanied by an interim report. 410.3.5% On the acceptance by the Parliament of a recommendation validly made to remove the President, the office of the President shall become vacant. Until the process to appoint a new President, as provided for above at paragraph 4.3.2, is complete, an interim President shall be appointed in the following manner. By the Prime Minister with the concurrence of the Leader of the Opposition, or 2. Where there is no concurrence between the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Page 28 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Opposition by the Prime Minister from among the custodes. 410.4 The CRC further recommends that the proceedings related to the removal of the President from office should not prejudice any other proceedings on the matter being dealt with external to the Parliament. 4.11 Transition to the office of the President of the Republic of Jamaica. 411.1 In order to ensure a smooth transition from the current Constitution of Jamaica to the reformed Constitution of Jamaica, the CRC recommends that the holder of the office of Governor-General at the time when the reformed Constitution of Jamaica comes into effect shall assume the office of President of the Republic of Jamaica on a transitional basis until the selection process for the President of the Republic of Jamaica is expeditiously completed. The CRC is of the view that this could be completed within a 3-month period. 411.2 The CRC further recommends that in the event that the holder of the office of the Governor-General at the time when the reformed Constitution comes into effect is either unable or unwilling to assume the role and functions of the President during the transitional period, that transitional President be appointed by the Prime Minister after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition. From among the custodes or from among. Page 29 of 52nd. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. The President's Council, the former Jamaican Privy Council. 5. Retention of the Parliamentary Cabinet System. 5.1 Comparison of the Parliamentary Cabinet System and the Presidential System. 5.1.1 A parliamentary cabinet system of government is a system of governance in which the executive branch derives its legitimacy from and is accountable to the legislature, Parliament. In this system, the head of government, often called the Prime Minister, is typically a member of the Parliament and is chosen on the basis of leadership or support of the party or parties, which gain a majority in parliamentary elections. 5.1.2 A presidential form of government, on the other hand, is a system of governance in which the executive branch is separate from the legislative branch. In this system, the president normally serves as both the head of state as well as the head of the executive government and is not usually a member of the legislature. 5.1.3 The following table below highlights the key differences considered by the CRC between the two systems of government. Page 30 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Features Parliamentary Cabinet System. Presidential System. Executive Head Prime Minister, who is typically selected from among members of President, who is elected and is not usually a member of the legislature. Parliament. Separation of powers. No clear separation between executive and legislative branches. Clear separation of powers between executive and legislative branches. Selection of executive chosen from the majority, party or coalition in Parliament. Elected directly by the people or through an electoral college. Cabinet composition and accountability. Appointed from the Parliament and collectively responsibility to the people through the Parliament. Appointed by the President and may or may not be members of the legislature. Term of office. Prime Minister's tenure is not usually fixed and can be determined by elections or party dynamics. President typically serves a fixed term in office. Checks and balances. Executive is accountable to the Parliament, which can remove the government through a vote of no confidence. Executive and legislative branches have separate control with checks and balances include veto power. Page 31 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Features parliamentary cabinet system. Presidential system. Stability and decision-making. Provides stability, offers flexibility and greater decisiveness. Often leads to gridlock. 5.1.4 The poor record of the presidential system in the preservation of democracy and protection of the people against dictatorship is well documented. The true position is as the editor of the Presidential Studies Quarterly, stated in Part 4 of the 1987 issue, other nations which have sought to emulate the American document have not succeeded. Dr. Simeon McIntosh, an eminent Caribbean constitutional law scholar, in a published article wrote, Professor Juan Lins of Yale University, in a monumental study on this very subject, has observed that, with the outstanding exception of the United States, most of the stable democracies of Europe and the Commonwealth are parliamentary regimes. In contrast, most of the countries with presidential constitutions have been unstable democracies or authoritarian regimes. 17. 5.1.5 There is no doubt parliamentary system are among the most stable democracies and are generally highly rated on the World Economic Indices. That countries which have the 17. Juan J. Lins, Democracy, Presidential or Parliamentary, Does It Make a Difference? Yale University, July 1985. Page 32 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May. These include most Caribbean community countries, notably Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados, and others such as Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Germany, Iceland, Norway, and CARICOM, Sweden. In the Stone Committee report that examined ways of strengthening the roles and performance of parliamentarians, Professor Carl Stone recommended that Jamaica should replace the parliamentary cabinet system with the presidential system. Among the developing democracies which Professor Stone named to be treated as models for having operated the presidential system successfully are Venezuela, Chile, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Peru. The CRC has noted that since then, these countries that Jamaica has been asked to emulate have experienced severe political turmoil or constitutional crises. 5.1.7 Having carefully weighed the strengths and weaknesses of both systems of government, the CRC recommends that the parliamentary cabinet system be retained. 6. Reform of the Parliament. 6.1 The citizenship qualification. 6.1.1 The CRC considered the citizenship and not Commonwealth citizenship should be the citizenship criterion for membership in the Parliament of. Issue of whether Jamaica. 18. See Archbishop Samuel Carter Lecture, 2002, by Dr. the Honorable Lloyd Barnett, OJ 19. Carl Stone, Ministry Paper No. 11, 1990, Kingston, Office of the Prime Minister. Page 33 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 6.1.2 Currently, Section 39 of the Constitution entitles a Commonwealth citizen to be a member of Parliament if he or she has been ordinarily resident in Jamaica for the 12 months immediately preceding election or nomination, and 2. Requires a Jamaican citizen to be similarly resident. 6.13 The 1995 JCCR and recommended to Parliament that Commonwealth citizens, who are not Jamaican citizens, should no longer be entitled to be parliamentarians, and that the residential requirement should no longer apply to Jamaican citizens to enable them to. Its assessment of Section 39, be parliamentarians. 6.1.4 The CRC considered the following basic questions. Whether the entitlement of Commonwealth as broadly defined should remain. Secu. Whether Jamaicans living abroad with United States, U.S. citizenship, or the citizenship of any other foreign country should be barred from membership in Parliament. Secu. The type of citizenship qualification that would be required to serve in the Jamaican Parliament. And 4. Whether Commonwealth citizens who are not Jamaicans should continue to qualify for membership in the Parliament. 6.1.5 On the matter of Commonwealth citizenship, the CRC took into account that the Commonwealth of Nations is a free association of sovereign states comprising the United Kingdom and a number of countries including its former. Page 34 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Colonies. These states have chosen to establish or maintain ties of friendship and practical cooperation and acknowledge the British monarch as the symbolic head of the Commonwealth of Nations. 6.1.6 It was specifically noted that since 1949, independent countries from Africa, the Americas, Asia, Europe, and the Pacific have joined the Commonwealth. The last 4 countries to have joined, Mozambique, Rwanda, Gabon, and Togo, have no historical ties to the British Empire. 6.1.7 In today's context, relationships within the Commonwealth have evolved with reduced reference to the monarch. 6.1.8 The CRC is of the view that the Constitution is not the appropriate place for dealing with Commonwealth citizenship. The CRC therefore recommends that current references to Commonwealth citizens should be removed and that status be dealt with by ordinary legislation. 6.1.9 The CRC further recommends that Jamaican citizenship should be the essential qualifying citizenship criterion for membership in the Parliament. 6.2% Disqualification. 6.2.1 The CRC is strongly of the view that a person who is convicted of a serious criminal offense should be disqualified from sitting as a lawmaker. 6.2.2 The Constitution currently provides that a person who has a criminal record is not disqualified from parliamentary. Page 35 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. Membership unless the conviction is for an electoral offense. The CRC therefore recommends that the provision be expanded to include convictions for offenses involving treason, and convictions for any offense involving fraud or violence where the person has been sentenced to a term of imprisonment for a period of 18 months or more. 6.3 Impeachment Process. 6.3.1 During its engagements, the CRC took into consideration the repeated concerns expressed by the public about the lack of accountability among parliamentarians. The CRC discussed, at length, over multiple meetings, the related issues. In particular, the CRC acknowledged calls for the inclusion of a process of impeachment and examined the history and experiences of impeachment in other jurisdictions. The CRC further considered whether and how impeachment would work in the Jamaican context. 6.3.2 The CRC recommends that there should be no inclusion of an impeachment process in the reformed constitution for the following reasons. It is dealing with what is essentially a legal matter through a political process, as most impeachable offenses are criminal in nature and properly triable in the courts. 2. It can easily be manipulated for partisan political purposes. It is difficult to ensure an impartial hearing by members of a parliament that is divided along partisan political lines. Page 36 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 2. The Parliament would have to be provided with its own investigative resources. 4. Where the matter being investigated involves the allegation of a crime, then the normal criminal proceedings would be invoked, which creates the risk of competing and conflicting jurisdictions and outcomes. And v. In cases where impeachable offenses are not criminal offenses. The definitions are generally vague, and therefore the impeachment process is inconsistent with the principles of natural justice. 6.4 Fixed General Elections Date. 6.4.1 The CRC is aware that some Jamaican political leaders, civil society organizations, political analysts, and members of the public have advocated for fixing the date for parliamentary general elections. The Constitution, by virtue of Section 64(2), now gives the Prime Minister the discretion to call the national general elections at any time within the life of the Parliament. This discretion is often exercised to gain political advantage. 6.4.2 While recognizing that there are good grounds for the proposal to adopt a fixed election date, the CRC is of the opinion that a precise and inflexible date may be problematic in a small country like Jamaica. However, it is still possible to introduce greater certainty as to when parliamentary elections are held, by having a fixed duration for the life of the Parliament and a limited period in which to fix the actual election date. Page 37 of 52. Report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. May 2024. 6.4.3 During the deliberations on the issue of a fixed date for general parliamentary elections, It was suggested that the matter be referred to the ECJ, which, by virtue of its mandate, is empowered to recommend changes to the electoral laws. At the same time, the CRC was reminded that the life of the Parliament is a matter provided for in the Constitution, and given the highest level of protection that is, it is a deeply entrenched provision. 6.4% since the matter was repeatedly raised for consideration during public consultations and within the CRC itself, and falls within the work proposed for Phase 1 of the reform process. The CRC recommends that in the event there is consensus between the two political parties represented in the Parliament,